Dirty Sports 734 live on YouTube in 5, 4, 3. Welcome to the Dirty Sports Podcast. I am your host, Andy Ruther, coming to you live from Cincinnati, Ohio, with my co-host from Los Angeles, California, Joey. No chill, pray now.
Good morning, Andy. Good to see your face again, buddy.
Yeah, man. We're still here.
We're still doing it. What is this? 740 something?
You didn't listen. I just said 734.
734. I had 743 in my head, so I just swapped the last two.
Maybe you're suffering from some CTE from watching another sham boxing match last night.
I didn't watch, honestly.
I didn't either.
I saw clips on Twitter.
Me
lots
too.
Of hugging. Honestly, I tweeted it. Like, I want to see the 27 guys Floyd Mayweather was able to knock out in his boxing career, because a YouTuber is not one of them.
It's really embarrassing. Like, the state of boxing, and I know we've talked about it, and I don't know.
I mean, it's not even really a boxing match, though, right? It's an exhibition match.
But it is like it's still boxing. I know what you're saying, that it's exhibition and it's all for money,
but all of them are at this point.
That's my point, though. It's a sport that,
like, it would have been closer. And again, I didn't watch. I just saw clips. But it would have been even closer if there was any chance for a rematch. Then Floyd would have, like, taken a couple punches, and then they would have had Mayweather, Paul, too. But it's just such, like, I mean, the whole setup with, like, we're going to have a fake hat grab, like, it's so pathetic.
I mean, it's the equivalent of a team throwing games or trying less to make the series go longer as far as boxing rematches.
Right. But I don't, I like, does anybody think, I've been seeing some Twitter takes that Floyd wasn't trying to knock him out. And it's like, how do you figure? What's the reasoning behind that? I actually just think Floyd Mayweather is a defensive fighting
technician.
Always has been.
Yeah.
Every Floyd Mayweather, that's what I tweeted last night. I was like, not a lot of action, just a lot of dodging and, dancing happening. And then I put, I'm not actually watching. I just assume this is every Floyd Mayweather fight ever. Like, oh, what a great technical boxer. It's like, well, there's two sides to boxing. There's punching, and then there's avoiding getting hit. Yeah, Floyd's great at avoiding getting hit, but, like, when's the last time there was an enjoyable Floyd Mayweather fight where it wasn't just him avoiding? And now he's fighting a YouTuber who I know is, like, a lot bigger than him or whatever, but it's like, bro,
I wonder what the comparison would be.
Like, that should have been the goal.
Like, what's because I don't know enough about boxing, but what is and I know what you're saying, though. I do know that much, right? That he doesn't knock people out. His career is avoiding getting hit. He's considered one of the best technicians of all time. But what is the sports equivalent of Floyd Mayweather for basketball or baseball or football?
I don't know that there is one, really. I mean, because the boxing is a sport where there's judges, there's judgment.
Yeah.
That's why, like, there's a lot of CTE, there's a lot of punch drunkenness in boxing. It's like, it's definitely not a safe sport, but there was a time in boxing, it ended in my early days as a boxing fan, but, like, where these guys would go out there and somebody would try to beat the other one up. Or they would try to beat each other up. And it was pretty clear who the winner was. And whether it's for their safety, whether it's for, whatever, the last 20, 25 years of boxing has just been like, who's going to take less punches and win it on the cards?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's exceptions to that rule, but the exceptions to that rule are probably in the lower level fights, because once you're in the championship thing, you're just thinking about getting more of these fights and getting more of these fights and getting more of this money and more of this money. I mean, even Floyd's talking about how much money he made from this. It's like, bro, you like, that's fine, but how much money do you need? Because you made some money on this, but you embarrassed yourself. You went into the ring with a social media star and you didn't knock him out, and you claim to be one of the best boxers of all time. That's it. The end. That's a pathetic performance.
I mean, that's the thing, dude. Money, and even as I get older, you hear people talk about money isn't, it's definitely not the end all be all. It never should be. And that's a very valid point of, dude, if you want to consider yourself one
but
of the
it
best,
is for him. His literal middle name is Money. Floyd Money Mayweather. It is the single most important thing to him.
Which is fine.
Letting a social media star, they're coming up with a script where the white social media star will steal the black boxer's hat in the press conference and do like a "I got your hat" thing. Like he couldn't be more open to embarrassing himself for money.
Well, that's my point, is that don't consider yourself or anyone. You can't have it both ways. If you want to just make the money, fine. If that's your prerogative, go for it. But then you can't consider yourself one of the best boxers of all time if you're fighting a YouTuber, because you're right. With the scripted hat thing, at this point, boxing is Real Housewives.
Well, I've literally been saying that for 15 years.
It's Andy Cohen creating a show for Bravo. Boxing is Real Housewives. And it's sad because, there was a time, I'm sure you had this, where it was such a big deal to get the Tyson fight and to see him knock the shit out of somebody in the late 80s and 90s, and the Holyfield fights and George Foreman. And now it's just like, whatever, man. He's fighting a YouTuber.
Well, and to be fair, the drama, the Tyson thing, the second round of Tyson's career post jail was probably the real beginning of this thing, because it was like the boxing wasn't that great. It became the drama of he bit him and we're going to do this and there's going to be a rematch and we're going to do that and we're going to do and all that stuff. It just became a thing where it's like, I mean, the sad part of boxing is it's always about like, we're stealing your money now, but we're also setting you up to steal your money later. And for me, it's always been like, bro, you can only steal my money once.
Sure.
Like you can do the hype and I can buy in Roy Jones Jr. and Bernard Hopkins and whatever. And I'm like, if they don't beat the shit out of each other, I'm out. I'm not doing this thing again where it was like, oh, we're going to do this, but then it never really happens. But next time it will. I'm like, no, fool me once, fucking shame on you.
And you could make the argument, right? When you go to other sporting events, I can complain about the overpriced bottles of water or beer or hot dogs at the local ballpark, but every game is different. Whereas boxing, it seems to run the same script. When I go onto a baseball game, I don't know if I'm going to see 11-0 game, a 1-0 game. Boxing, like you're saying, it seems like it's following the same script of it's all fake and there's not going to be a lot of punches thrown or connected. And I don't know. Maybe I just don't know enough. Maybe I'm wrong.
Listen, I don't watch a ton of boxing anymore because of this very reason. It just seems very orchestrated. And listen, we are in a way, we are being a little unfair to boxing right now to be talking about the sport of boxing as it pertains to a social media thievery.
Sure.
But this motherfucker was on Showtime, and this did go just like every Floyd Mayweather fight in history went. Floyd Mayweather is 51-0. He's knocked out 27 guys. When you start watching boxing, when guys are up and comers, when guys have title shots, they're usually like, 25-0 or 25-1, and they've knocked out 24 people. It's like how you get there. The dude hasn't knocked anybody out in over a decade.
Yeah, that's really telling. And your point about Showtime is also very telling. This isn't a Triller fight. This isn't a app that did a 180 and turned into some sort of boxing promotional company. This was on Showtime, which shows where boxing is at.
Right.
That's crazy.
This is the idiocracy portion of like the movie Idiocracy is, it's becoming true like one thing at a time. It's amazing how fucking spot on that movie has turned out to be. But like, it's moving like a wave. It's moving like a shadow over the plains, and it has definitely enveloped boxing. And honestly, it enveloped boxing a long time ago. Now they're just like, well, we can't make like all the fights we put out are so bad that like we can't even get people invested in the drama of this shit anymore. So now we have to literally bring dramatic actors in to cause drama, and they will fight people. Like we are not that long away from having, De Niro Stallone be an actual boxing match.
That I'd watch that. But we're talking about it. See, that's the thing. The argument can be made, hey, you guys can diss it all you want. You're opening your podcast to give it 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So
but I didn't give it $50, and that's what's important. And
I got you.
Shame on you.
Yeah, I didn't. I just watched a couple Twitter clips. I didn't really read too much about it outside of that. I watched some highlights. I was too busy with my own world, and also, dissecting the Sunday of basketball as we move along in the NBA playoffs, and we had another great performance by Luka. I'm going to lead with that because that's my take. Obviously they lose. It's a team game, but he's pretty awesome to watch. And I think we're going to agree here. I just don't think his value is appreciated enough.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think it's hard to say. It's hard to, see that he is getting. I think that this was the moment. I think this postseason is the moment for the generational turn, and we can talk about that in a minute. But also, I think this is the postseason where it became very clear. Like Luka is now the best player in basketball, in my opinion, the best all-around player in basketball. And I was
going to bring that up.
I think the torch has been passed. LeBron without, AD and without having any of his guys step up could only do so much. Now he was, playing the 2 seed. And that's one thing, but I think that this was the thing. Like, and as honestly, I think as good as LeBron played, he could only do so much. And Luka, meanwhile, similarly deficient cast. I will say, I think, his supporting cast, especially when LeBron has AD out, is significantly better than the Lakers. But at the same time, he's doing what a young prime LeBron did, which is making all the shots, getting everybody involved, doing all the things. I think this was the moment where the best all-around basketball player torch has been passed. And at the same time, I know I said this yesterday. I know social media and NBA Twitter and the old heads and the whatever. It's like, well, he lost in the first round
again.
So what does it matter? What does it fucking matter? And it's like, dude, just, the eye test is all that you need if you have any sort of basketball intelligence. And what the guy's doing from a shot making standpoint, from a facilitating standpoint, from running the offense, he, is doing what prime LeBron did. He's doing everything. And there's only so much that you can do. And there's only so much you can do against better competition, against better all around teams. Like the guy had 29 points in the first half.
Yeah.
Was he up to 30?
No, that was actually going to be my next point, was that he had 29 points at hold on. Sorry. Why does it do that? He had 29 points at half. And guess what? They were losing.
Yeah.
So it's a great point. I have a pretty cool stat that I saw that I want to read off about Luka. Like, this isn't one of those stats in a vacuum. This is just like, wow, this shows for anybody who wants to disagree with how great he is. And I probably agree with you as far as the torch being passed. Luka already has 5 40-point playoff games.
Yeah.
13 career playoff games. Now listen to this. The following players don't have 5 40-point playoff games, and they've played in at least 50 playoff games. Again, Luka's played in 13. Damian Lillard, Carmelo Anthony, Tracy McGrady, Kyrie Irving, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Vince Carter, Tim Duncan, Karl Malone.
Yeah. And listen, I think the thing with Luka is it's so much more than just the scoring. Although obviously he does the heavy lifting on the scoring for that team. It's crazy because I have a friend who's a Mavs fan, and he asked me yesterday, who is the number 2 for the Mavs next year? And I said, I don't know, but also I'm not sure that that's the question when you have Luka that you need to be asking. I think you need to. They have a history in the Dirk championship of Dirk and the gang. I think you need to raise the level of everybody around. Like, everybody's shitting on Porzingis. Everybody's shitting on, the kind of the rest of the squad. And I think Porzingis, while, disappointing in living up to like, oh, he's a unicorn, I think is a good piece for them. I think Tim Hardaway Jr. is a good piece for them. But I think what you need is you need a bunch more guys like that. You need a bunch more shot makers around Luka. The same way when you look at that Mavs team that won the championship, it was Dirk, a couple of key defensive guys in Tyson Chandler, and some literally nothing but wing defender types that could help. That could help.
Sean Merriman.
Yeah.
Sean Merriman.
Sean Marion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who was also a shot maker. He can make shots. But then they had like the Stevensons and the Karan Butlers and the whatever that were guys who were literally just out there who could defend wing players. And then guys who could just make shots. Jason Terry, Marion.
Was Page on that team?
Yeah. Barea, Jason Kidd, like all of those guys, veteran shot makers. And that's exactly what the Mavs are missing right now. That's exactly what the Lakers are missing now. And it's tough these days to stockpile those guys, but shooters are easier to find than playmakers. And I think that's the thing is like, yes, we could talk about who the number 2 is, but also just raise the level of everybody around the guy. And listen, I'm just not a old head idiot, doesn't watch the games, whatever. Like Luka proves to me in yet another first round loss that I think is the best player, all around player in basketball. He's now lost, and he's lost in the first round more times than LeBron James has already. And people are, again, shitting on LeBron for not getting it done. And you're like, you just have to watch the games. You just have to watch who's out there, who's not out there.
And not only that, when you watch the game, when you listen to Mark Jackson and Van Gundy discuss how great he is, guys who have an astute knowledge of the game, I think it's pretty obvious. I'm agreeing with you that the torch is being passed, and we can't forget Luka is 22. He just turned 22 in February. And to bring up some history, I mean, Jordan was 1-9 until Scottie Pippen came along.
Right.
In the playoffs. So that's 3 first-round exits. And again, it was the same thing with Jordan. There's only so much Michael Jordan could do. There's only so much LeBron James can do. This isn't Magic Johnson going to a stacked Lakers team his rookie year and they win the title.
Right.
It's a completely different situation.
And you got to remember that Luka and LeBron come into this league before they're 22 years. Like now we're talking about Luka at 22. Michael Jordan came in and lost for 3 years as a college junior.
Sure. It's true.
Yeah.
You're right. So Jordan basically came in at Luka's current age,
Right.
a year
Right.
younger. I mean, it is. Look, if I'm a Dallas fan, I'm feeling great because you have an owner who's going to make it work as far as finding pieces. And if it doesn't work, to continue to retool. And he's a guy that, like you said, is just going to make everyone so much better with not just the scoring. It's just I don't know if you were listening to the audio, Van Gundy at one point said, he goes, they're just bricking wide open threes. He said, Luka should have 20 assists right now.
Right. And then that's exactly what,
they
we're
win,
talking
they
about.
They win that game if they hit their threes. They win that game.
I absolutely. And that's why you got to surround the guy with shot maker. Like, think about what, when you're building around a guy like Luka, in the same ways when you're building around a guy like LeBron, bring in guys to do the things that it's hard for somebody that's facilitating your entire offense and doing the majority of your scoring to do. Bring in a guy who can defend the other team's best player, simply because, again, look at the Pippen Jordan thing. Was Jordan competent to guard the other team's best player? Yes. Was LeBron competent to guard the other team's best player? Yes. But why would you do that when they have to carry the load on offense? Why not bring in a guy that it's no one talks about it, but like the key to the Bulls championships was Scottie Pippen's guarding the other team's best player better than anybody basically in history. The other team's wing player at the very least. And then Jordan doesn't even have to think about it. Jordan's running around, stealing the ball from Jeff Hornacek when he's not looking. And, so bring in a guy that can help Luka do the things that he can't do himself. Bring in a guy to guard the other team's best player. Bring in shot makers, because he can make the shots that he takes. But what about the shots he's getting other people? Bring in some of those guys. And yeah. I think, they're going to have to definitely make a move. But I don't think the answer with the Mavs, again, and you can see this with the Lakers series, is like finding the other guy to go with Luka. It's like you do that, then your whole destiny is on the shoulders of the health of two guys. Whereas if you surround Luka with a bunch of dudes who can make shots, if you go with that 2011 Mavs plan and one guy goes down, who cares?
Yeah. Well, look, they have guys. I mean, we know this. Like even on this team, they have guys that could shoot. They just didn't. They were 10 of 36 from three. Guys like Hardaway just went cold. They're 10 of 36. That's 27%. Whereas the Clippers are 20 of 43. So we're talking a difference of 30 points. If you just cut that in half, it's a tie game.
Yeah.
Which isn't a crazy thing to say. And you saw that in game one of the Bucks Nets game, where Milwaukee could not hit dude, in today's NBA, you have to hit your threes. If you have a game where you're that off, you can be off, but not that off.
Yeah.
You don't stand a chance of winning.
Right.
You just don't. And that's exactly what happened that game. James Harden goes down. So you think, or you would put the potential of the win, it's going to veer totally towards Milwaukee. But if you can't hit a shot,
yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And that series will be interesting to me. I thought it was going to be a good series. Nets win. But when Harden went down and now Harden go out, I immediately was like, man, I already thought this was going to be a good series, like a 6-game Nets win series, and the difference between a 6-game series and the difference between a team winning in 6 and the other team winning in 7 is one break here and one break there. So,
Harden's out game 2.
I know. And so Harden being out, now the Nets showed me something in game 1, being able to win with Harden out. I still think long term that can be, difficult. I think the Bucks are going to make an adjustment for that. But like you said, you have to hit your shots. You just absolutely have to hit your shots, because I mean, that's the difference between a blowout in the NBA and, a close game that could go either way. If one team's hitting their shots and the other team isn't, we're looking at a blowout. I mean, that's what happened in the Nets game. That's what happened in the Mavs game. One team's hitting their shots, the other isn't. It's a 15-point game. That's just the state of the NBA these days.
Yeah, no, it's really true. Yeah, I mean, and like I said, you can't shoot 20 to 25% from three. You can win a game when you shoot 35%. I'm not saying you got to shoot 40% or greater.
Win a game when you shoot 30%.
But when you're in the 20s, that's the difference. And again, both those games that we're talking about, if you watched them, these were open looks. Guys are just bricking them. Right. Open looks, which, to bring it back to your point earlier, that was the thing about that 2011 Mavs team, man. That whole playoffs, they couldn't miss. Mm-hmm. I mean, they beat the shit out of the two-time defending Lakers in a 4-0 sweep.
Yeah.
Phil Jackson's worst playoff loss ever was that game 4 in Dallas where they beat the hell out of them.
Yeah.
So if you start making your shots.
It's because Kobe didn't have the killer instinct that game.
Was that the game when Bynum?
Yes.
Who did he toss on the ground? Was that Barea?
I forget. Yeah, he elbowed somebody in the throat, right?
Yeah.
And Artest got kicked out, I think.
That's right. Man, I don't know. Pretty soft nowadays. Guys don't fight. They don't have tenacity.
It's just a lack of killer instinct on Kobe's part. I just don't know how he kept those shots from going in.
I remember, what I remember vividly about that game? I was in the old Smut studio, the old setup. This is 2011. I remember, the TV's in the far corner. I don't even know where it is. I'm washing the dishes, and it was one of those. I'll never forget. I was washing the dishes, and I was like, "This is so ugly." The Lakers were down. Am I wrong? I think they were down 50 at one point, at least 40.
Yeah, no, they basically lost by 40, didn't they?
I think they were down 50. I remember just washing the dishes and being like,
I know, it was glorious. I was running around doing the fucking 3-ball thing. I was so excited. That's one of my favorite teams ever. Talk to Damo sometime about when I visited him in Tahoe and it was 2 a.m. He's like, bro, I got to go to bed. You can't talk to me about the 2011 Cavs or Mavs anymore. I'm like, no, but you don't understand.
Well, I wasn't. I was, I wanted the Lakers to continue winning because it's fun. It's fun living in a city when they win a title. And I had 2 fun title runs as far as partying. I'm like, well, that's over. Little did I know the whole thing was over for a while. But yeah, no killer instinct from Kobe that game. You got to overcome that 50-point deficit. Put that team on your back, though.
Yeah.
The Hawks with a surprising game 1 win.
Yeah. I'm surprised that, listen, I think that this is a good matchup for them. I think that they're playing with a lot of confidence. I think Trae Young is, it's funny because people love to talk about the softness of the NBA when, it comes to LeBron flopping, whatever. Meanwhile, Trae Young is literally taking the James Harden softness of the NBA to the next level and has figured out how to maneuver for every call when guys are somehow behind him and still fouling him. But he's got the referees pretty dialed in right now. I think this is a good matchup for them. Embiid played, and they almost come back and win.
He played well.
Yeah, he played well. Doc Rivers has a rotation disaster. Doc Rivers' rotation in that game was a mess, and I'm not surprised. This is the kind of thing where you look at the matchups and you go, oh well, the Sixers are going to have the Knicks Hawks winner. The Sixers are going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then you got to remember, listen, Doc Rivers, he's a great guy and his players like him and everybody's going to play hard. But when you get into the playoffs, it comes down to the strategy, it comes down to your rotations, it comes down to who are you going to play, when are you going to play them. It comes down to what plays you're going to call out at timeouts. And all the teams are pretty good. So the idea that literally Doc Rivers coached his way out of a game 1 win, coached himself into a 20-point deficit at one point, 15-point deficit. It's I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a good series. And I think it could go either way.
Sure. I was thinking the same thing when I was watching it. I was thinking the Doc thing, saying it's like, here we go again. And I know it's just one game and it's a 7-game series, but I think it really could go either way, especially if you have
I mean,
any.
especially if you have an Embiid question mark the whole series.
That's what I was going to say. Which brings me to a point I want to discuss that I wrote down. I want to discuss just the injuries. Now, Embiid has been plagued by injuries his entire career.
Yeah.
So I don't want to include him in this, but maybe this is me coming from like a homer perspective as somebody who's rooted for the Lakers the last, 15 years or whatever. But it's not just the Lakers. I think the injuries that have happened throughout the NBA to major stars across the board, I think this rush season was a huge mistake.
Well, I think there's a double factor. I mean, listen, I guess the question is, what's a mistake? The NBA is making money, and you have to look at it from their long-term strategy of, we have to get back on schedule at some point. Is the season 2 months later than it starts every year going forward? Now we're just like, we're constantly behind, and there's just going to be no sort of consistency to when the league starts and ends its year.
Why not do a second? Why not just do back-to-back shortened seasons?
That's fine. Then, that's a strategy, but that's a potentially long-term benefit for getting everything back on track with the health of these guys. But because you lose money is the
sure. Nobody wants to lose money. But I thought this out actually before I wanted to bring this in for a discussion. I'm thinking the league is run by the stars. When LeBron's hurt and Anthony Davis and Durant and Harden and all the injuries that have happened across the board, that's not helping. You want these guys in the playoffs. You do.
Well, so here's what happened if you look at the league this year. And there's probably somebody in the league office who's like, this is good, which is the generation, like, it was almost a forced generation switch. Usually it happens a little bit more naturally, where the mid to late 30s guys carry teams through the playoffs one last time, and a young team here or there makes a run with them, and then you see that the next year that team progresses and whatever. But now we've got Hawks, Sixers. I mean, just look at the leaders on these teams. I mean, I think Embiid's 26 or 27, and he's basically like the oldest of the bunch at this point. Trae Young is across from him. He's 4. You had Luka, who's 22, leading the Mavs. The Clippers obviously are the one team that gets through with vets. The Bucks are young. Their Bucks star is young. The Nuggets, I mean, Jokic is 26 as well, 27 as well. Devin Booker's 24. The Nets obviously have guys in their 30s who are leading them. But the Jazz, Donovan Mitchell is young. Like, we're now at the point where almost in one off season, we did something that usually takes a couple years to quietly happen, where slowly teams get moved out with superstar vets and the young Bucks take over. And we've seen that change happen over the years way more gradually. I mean, we were a Luka Clippers performance away from having the entire second round, with the exception of the Nets, who have put together 3, veterans on one team in Durant and Irving and Harden, from being an all 20-something star-led teams. That it's usually way, way, way more gradual than that. And I think that's a combination of that. This is how it tends to go, but also the shortened season, the injuries, and the LeBron Jameses, the Anthony Davises, the whatever, being hurt, not getting, and then you also look at teams like, people say, oh, it's the, people love to shit on this Lakers team and this Heat team for, you were bubble pretenders. It's like, no, we were the teams that were playing hella late into last year and then had to turn around and come back and start a season right away.
Well, that's another one of my points that I wanted to bring up. You have both finals teams losing in the first round this year
because they didn't get a break.
Exactly. And I don't know the last time that's happened. I don't have it in front of me. It's an interesting stat I'd love someone to give me. And then you have the list, which has been tweeted out. And I like this. This is interesting. I saw the tweet. His name's Jonathan Danilich or Danilik. I don't know how it's pronounced, but this is the current list of teams left in the NBA finals. I'm sorry, in the NBA playoffs in the last time they won a title. Sixers, 1983. Bucks, 1971. Hawks, 1958. And the rest have never won a title. That's the Suns, right. Nets, Jazz, Nuggets, Clippers. So look, the argument could be made, which you're saying, somebody might like that. I could counter argue that though. Dude, you want your marketable stars. LeBron and AD are way more marketable. People know them. The casual, very casual basketball fan knows them and might not really know Devin Booker.
Well, but I guess the flip side of that argument would be that they know them because they played in NBA finals. They know them because they go deep in the playoffs. I mean, Anthony Davis on the Pelicans is essentially, Trae Young on the Hawks, Devin Booker on the Suns.
But he also is known for his unibrow, and he won a title at Kentucky. I'm just saying, like Devin Booker played at Kentucky, but he won a title.
Right. Listen, I mean, in terms of like star power, whatever, but like in terms of the NBA guys, people watching everything is like, that's how you make your name in the NBA.
Sure.
Is by a deep playoff run. So,
and for the record, Joe, I'm not against this. I'm just tossing out a discussion. Do I think there are some regrets within executives at the NBA saying, man, we kind of fucked this up?
I don't think there are from an NBA standpoint. I think that, this is the other side. This is what they factored this stuff in, but they're like, the money we might lose in that. Like, do they want, a LeBron finals? Probably. I don't know. Like, I don't know how what the internal tracking says about, like, are people sick of LeBron? Are they not? Like, whatever. My concern where I think they fucked up more is that I think the bubble was properly competitive. They played all the games last year, essentially, give or take, like obviously the teams that weren't going to be in either way. Then you go into the bubble. And I mean, I think we all thought bubble ball, the quality of bubble basketball was great. So they figured out a way to get through last year and do it right. Then they maybe jumped the gun this year. And my concern is really more with like the competitive, like making it correct competitively. And I think if you just look at the Heat and you just look at the Lakers, teams like that who had to go deep into the playoffs last year, turn around and come back, didn't get the fairest shot. But that's also sports. It's like, the playing field is not always going to be level. This is just the way things go sometimes. But, from the NBA standpoint, I think that they're, the silver lining here is that a lot of their young stars are going to get hoisted up, and they're going to they're going to do this generational transition in hyperspeed, because you look at the LeBron James are out, the Anthony Davises are out, the Dame Lillards are out. Like the last generation of guys, the teams led by older stars tend to have not made it, and the teams led by younger stars are making it. And it's like, okay, well, the whole world is going to be on a Jokic, Donovan Mitchell, or Jokic or Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, or whatever. Like, these young stars are going to play in a Western Conference Finals and an Eastern Conference Finals.
Who do we love?
There's a chance that the Clippers and the Nets do
Sure.
it, and it'll be interesting to see.
I would argue that. I would still argue that's still what the NBA wants. They want
Clippers Nets.
yes, because of the name recognition. What do we think about Denver, Phoenix, Clippers, Jazz? Who do we like? I mean, these are some tough series.
It's really tough for me. I like the Clippers coming out of that series the way they did,
and the way Kawhi played. He played an amazing series.
But like I don't know, like I'm not a huge Jazz fan. I don't know who is. But
Mormons.
Right. But like I think the Jazz are now being sort of forgotten. And dare I say I like the Jazz in that series. The Clippers had their hands full. Now, I understand Luka. Listen, I just said the torch has been passed. Luka is the best player in the world. But the Clippers had their hands full versus Luka and the other guys. The Jazz are the 1 seed. The Jazz are a deep team.
Team basketball.
The Jazz have shot makers. The Jazz have a defensive star in the middle. The Jazz have a scoring star on the outside.
The Jazz also have a coach who loves cocaine.
Even better. Dare I say I like the Jazz?
Okay, we're going to disagree on this. I think the Jazz are the better team. Obviously, they're the number 1 seed, but I don't know, man. I feel like Kawhi's getting in that championship mode again. He looked crisp, especially when they needed him the last 2 games. I'm going to go with the Clippers to win that series.
Okay.
Which I think everybody probably else is. You're right. For that reason, the Jazz are under the radar, which is ridiculous. But I like the Clippers. And I like the Denver series.
The Denver Phoenix series is probably the toughest one for me until the big question mark. And by the way, there's the Sixers Hawks series is going to be close. The Nets Bucks series, depending on how Harden is or is not healthy, is going to be close. But the Nuggets Suns series for me is really, really tough. I think the Suns have that 2011 Mavs feel where it's like I think the momentum is building because they beat the Lakers, but I also fear that they peaked too early, that they're feeling a little too good. I love Jokic. I love a team built around a guy who's going to facilitate. I mean, he's probably my favorite player left to watch. I think that's going to be a great series. It's really tough for me because I feel like the Suns are definitely feeling themselves a little bit. And, the Nuggets, they had some trouble just with Portland. That's tough. It's really tough for me. I'll be rooting for the Nuggets. I really don't know which way. I'm rooting for a good series and I'm rooting for the Nuggets, but I don't know which way that one's going to go. I guess if you put a gun to my head, I'd pick the Nuggets for my heart, but like I think it could go either way.
Has a team ever won the title that was dating a Kardashian or a Jenner? Because Devin Booker is with Kendall Jenner.
Tristan Thompson, right?
That's what I was going to ask. Was Tristan with Khloe?
I have no idea.
That's what you need.
Lamar Odom?
Ooh, that's a good one too.
I don't know how long ago this has been going on. Like how long ago they've been on the scene, like official. Like
it's fascinating. I mean, it truly. I know we've talked about it. It's fascinating to have one family.
Is Devin Booker currently dating a Kardashian?
He's dating Kendall Jenner.
Okay,
they're a little more under the wraps. Like it's not as much. There's not as much social media out there with them publicly showing it. But the reason I ask that is it's pretty amazing if you look at the teams.
I mean, I've seen the meme a few times already, but like the gelling of this team since they all got head together.
Hey, I tweeted that out. I'm just saying. I find that hilarious. What about the nut?
Yeah. I just can't wait for like the Kevin Garnett, like DeAndre Ayton moment where he's had his hat on sideways, he's holding the championship. He's like, "What about the nut? All nuts at one time, anything is possible. What about the nut?"
I agree, man. You know, and this is where we disagreed, if you remember. I'm like, hey, dude, it's a bro bonding thing. You're like, I don't know, it's pretty weird.
Well,
man.
I mean, listen, the game changer, right, was they bring in Chris Paul, a guy who was not part of the nut, not part of what we're now referring to as the nut. And he's sort of the, he's sort of the quiet veteran leader of this team. He's like, listen, the Suns are like, listen, we got all these guys, young, talented guys who are all part of the nut, so they have a bond. But we need to bring in an outsider, a non-nut guy, to kind of be the vocal veteran leader of this. And so you take, like, what a GM team building strategy. A crew of guys from the nut and a vet like Chris Paul. I mean, you might be convincing me that they're going to win this series.
I think I'm convincing myself. Well, let's do a quick reminder for everybody who's like, what are you talking about?
It's Memorial Day weekend. On my birthday, I seen them all at Dre's.
Okay, so she's talking about the Phoenix Suns. Dre's club in Vegas.
This one team.
Okay.
She's so shy. It's so cute,
I know,
baby.
I'm like, shit. And I don't know, I was getting fucked in a hotel room. They all pulled up, and I sucked their
Put
dick.
the mic down.
The whole team.
7.
7 basketball players in a row?
Mm-hmm.
How was that?
I was fucked up. I didn't fuck any of them, though.
She said,
What happened to the nuts?
He's so concerned.
He's so like, bro, like that. Like, I'll never not be freaked out by him just be. That's his first follow-up question. What about the nuts?
And he didn't say cum. He didn't say semen. He said nuts. What happened to the nuts?
Yeah. What do you think happened to him, buddy?
That's like you have a roommate.
They all shot him into the fucking ice bucket. Like, Jesus Christ.
You have a roommate. Your roommate's like, dude, did you eat all the nuts?
Yeah.
What happened to the nuts? I love that mixed bag of nuts from Costco. What happened to the nuts?
Honestly, it's his question is like, if you came back to your roommates and you're like, yo, I was out in Vegas last night and I'm at Dre's and I'm partying and the whole Phoenix Suns team is there. And then the Phoenix Suns team is like, yo, you want to go to this VIP, suite with us? And I'm like, yeah. And so then this girl blows me and all the Suns. And suddenly your roommate holds up an empty bag of pecans and he's like, but what about the nuts, dude? And you're like, bro, you are not focused on the right portion of this story. He's like, no, but I'm just saying, what about the nuts? Like, I go to Trader Joe's, I buy the nuts, and then you just eat them.
Oh man. Did we ever learn which 7 players?
No, but like, it feels like it's the 7, it feels like it's the core 7 of the young Suns.
Yeah, I think so.
Who do you like in this series?
I think like my opinion's changed since we discussed the nut. I was going to say Denver.
I think Denver, it's crazy because we're talking about it again, but to me, this Denver team, again, it's very similar to LeBron. It's very similar to Luka. And again, I'm partial to guys who facilitate, but when you look at that first series that Denver plays, I like a Denver team in this series. If you have a Michael Porter Jr. series, if you have, these guys making shots and making plays, like if you have guys stepping it up, they're going to be tough because Jokic does such a good job finding guys and such a good job facilitating. And he also has the ability to go off himself. It's like, it's like the Blazers series all over, like if Booker gets 50, they can still win. The Nuggets can still win, but they need those guys that like Michael Porter Jr. was great in that first series. And I like him a lot. But he's young, he's spotty, and but he has crazy athleticism, and he like it's the kind of guy where like we need a lead dog on the guys who are going to help out. So like I like to see a big series from him. You know, I'll say this, I'm rooting for the Nuggets because of the LeBron trolling that went on. Like I just think that's so funny and lame simultaneously. Is like, you know, you have Jay Crowder who goes on to the Cavs. He's garbage. And now he's like doing LeBron trolling after him playing, you know, scoring like 6 points on another team. It's like your butt hurt because you were trash on the Cavs. Like, are we 2 years away from Kyle Kuzma scoring 6 points in a playoff game for some other team, not the Lakers, and trolling LeBron because he was so garbage on the Lakers?
But Crowder played pretty well last series.
He played fine, but like, was he great?
No, but for the reasons we just discussed, I think I'm rooting for Phoenix now. Although I love watching the Joker, but I mean, the Nut guys, the Nut team. Imagine that ESPN 30 for 30.
Yeah, the Nut team.
What if I told you 7 guys all got blowjobs from a wannabe Instagram model outside Dre's in Las Vegas? ESPN presents Phoenix Suns. What about the Nut?
Yeah.
Forget the sun rising, the Nuts rising. That's what's happening. Okay. Anything else we want to add on the NBA? Or are we going to wrap that up and move on to the Julio Jones trade?
Yeah, let's do it. That's fine with me.
Cool. So he's finally been traded after all the talk of where's he going? Where's he going? He is a member of the Titans. The Falcons give up a 2022 second round pick, and Atlanta gets the Titans 4th in 2023, and they give back their 6th in 2023. And, you know, there's money involved as well. I think it was more of a salary cap thing for the Falcons. Julio Jones is 32 years old. He's coming off an injury-plagued season where he had the fewest amount of yards and receptions since 2013 when he only played 5 games. I think it's a good trade all around. A lot of people are freaking out saying they didn't get anything back. I don't think people realize the value of a skilled player at his age.
Wait, people are upset with which side of it?
I think at least from what I saw, and I didn't look too closely, but you see a lot of people saying, oh, they didn't get enough in return on Julio Jones.
I would think that my take was this. You know, I know there's a lot of people who are like, this is just the value of like a 32-year-old wide receiver who's coming off an injury these days. And my response to that is I have to think that there's 14 teams that were like, oh, that's all it was going to take? Fuck, we fucked up. Because the reason you acquire Julio Jones right now is because you think you are close.
Sure.
And you hope, and it's a roll of the dice. And I think that I love this deal for the Titans. I
do too.
I don't think that Atlanta I don't think Atlanta did their due diligence in saying what the offers were, because I just think it's crazy that a team that's more desperate than the Titans wouldn't have offered more. But, you know, you can talk about Julio Jones' value right now. But again, you're hoping he comes not back to like, oh, dominant self, but gets to some close-ish, gets 3/4 of the way there, gets 60% of the way there. Because here's the thing. It's, for the Joe Prano Dirty Sports drinking game, get your beers ready. It's a Super Bowl or bust league. And I think if you're the Titans, if you're looking at your window, and listen, I know the Titans are building something great, and I know that, Tannehill has helped Derrick Henry more than Derrick Henry's helped Tannehill, and blah, blah, blah. The Titans' whole game plan is built on Derrick Henry is going to dominate you. Derrick Henry is going to keep the ball away from you. Henry is going to punish people. Your window right now, this window, and good teams make it like don't let their window close before they come up with open a different window. But their window right now is built on the Derrick Henry prime, which how long is that? 3 more years?
Yeah.
4
maybe.
more years? So a second, a sixth, and a fourth or whatever don't help you win a championship in the next 3 years as much as potentially adding a beyond solid number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah. No, I love it. I do. I love it for the Titans for everything you're saying. I think it's a great move, and I think he can still contribute. And I understand it from Atlanta's perspective. They're going to retool for the future, and it's a cost-saving trade. See, to me, this is the difference. This is the difference between a team like the Cincinnati Bengals, and I know I always bring it home, but I am, and the Atlanta Falcons. The Bengals franchise tagged AJ Green last year and gave him $18 million.
Yeah.
They're basically the same age.
Yep.
The Falcons said, we're not going to do something like that. Julio Jones has been amazing. He's a Hall of Fame wide receiver. He's top 20 all time in receiving yards as of right now. But we're going to, cut our losses. He's been great for us. He's been great for Matt Ryan. And we're going to trade him. And I think it works out great for Tennessee. And Tennessee is that close. We both know that. They are that close. And they're going all in. They're putting their cards in the middle. And they're saying, hey, this is what we got. And like you said, Derrick Henry has got so much mileage on those legs. It's only going to go so far. I think it's great for both teams.
I mean, I just look at, again, I think this is only a deal that so many teams would want to do because you're rolling the dice but it's potentially pushing you over the top. But if it doesn't work out, so what? But you look at a team like the Packers. Are the Packers sitting around going like, no, we don't want to give up a second and a fourth and a sixth to make Aaron Rodgers happy, to potentially add another great wide receiver, to push us over the top when we were in an NFC championship game 2 years in a row? Like, to me, whether or not he actually ends up being as valuable, those picks, I just cannot believe that there weren't other teams out there like the Packers who are willing to do better than a second, a fourth, and a sixth.
I don't know what to be honest, I don't know what's going on in Green Bay right now. I don't think anybody does. Doesn't a deal like that solve so many problems? It costs you essentially nothing. You hand this olive branch in the form of a all-time wide receiver. Well, the argument would be you're not going to get, let's just talk about the second pick. I would argue, and I think most people would agree with me, you're not going to get a second rounder of the value for the next 2 years that Julio Jones can bring to your team.
Potentially. Right?
Sure.
Right. But again, it's got to be the teams who go, forget 3 years from now. What about
that's my point? That's my point. That's my point.
Right.
For the next 2 years, that's exactly my point.
Like, this is a terrible deal. This is a terrible deal if the Giants make it.
Sure.
It's a terrible deal. It's a terrible deal if the Jets make it. It's a terrible deal if, the Bears make it. It's a terrible deal if the Broncos make it. But it's a great deal if somebody who's close makes it.
And somebody who has an established quarterback.
Yeah.
Who's shown they can win in the playoffs. So obviously that would have been great for Green Bay.
And I think the Atlanta Falcons just couldn't have possibly called around enough if that's the best that they could get. I just can't believe that there wasn't a more desperate close to winning.
So you think the Falcons could have got a higher value than a second rounder?
I think so.
Okay. We disagree there.
Well, maybe not even a second rounder, but like I'm talking, you got a second, a fourth, and a sixth next year or whatever it was. Like, you couldn't get 2 second rounders.
Yeah, maybe 2 second rounders. You're definitely not getting a first rounder for a
That's fine.
32-year-old coming off injury wide receiver. But again, I love it for Tennessee. And that'll really help them.
I love it for Tennessee if he plays 0 games. Like, I love it for Tennessee. Just like, it's a scratcher. It's a lotto ticket. It's like, what are you going to do with the $2?
Yeah.
You're down to your last $2. Buy a fucking scratcher. What are you going to do? Invest it?
Dogecoin. Isn't that your thing?
Yeah.
Team Dogecoin, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it hurts that I didn't sell a lot of it before Elon Musk took a dump on Saturday Night Live. But, I mean, I'm still plus a lot of money.
Oh, my God.
On some free Robinhood stocks we got 4 years ago.
Before I forgot I had this sitting here. So my brothers came over on Friday. First time all five, just the 5 of us have gotten together since my dad's funeral. And we're finally starting to go through the house. And my mom kept everything. And I mean everything. For anybody on YouTube or anybody who watches, I got to show this. The first ever Bengals jersey I ever had.
That's hilarious.
I was in the first grade, a little boomer sizing.
Yeah.
See the brand.
Boomer.
A Rawlings Youth Large. Might still fit me since I'm a little guy. And then I couldn't believe this. I thought I burned it. I still have circa 2005.
Your Carson Palmer jersey. I thought I burned it.
Well, because I know my dad had bought me a Ocho Cinco shirt. There was a funny shirt with his face when he had the blonde mohawk. And I remember putting those in a drawer. And I remember being like, I'm one Christmas season saying, I'm burning that stuff, Dad. I'm done with the Bengals. And I thought I burned it. So if anybody wants a 2005 era Carson Palmer used jersey. And when I pulled it out, my brother said, he goes, oh, that's the jersey where you almost made out with Mom in.
That's hilarious.
That's where I'm wearing the jersey of the infamous picture where it looks like I'm about to
kiss your mom on the mouth.
Yeah. When I got so drunk on that Christmas Eve game against the Bills and the Bengals lost. But yeah, maybe I'll keep it for that reason now that I think about it. But found those gems. Oh,
amazing.
Bringing back the memories.
That was in the Bengals box in the basement?
No, it was in a box full of all our stuff, like some grade school jerseys and not just mine, all the brothers. And like, I mean, you'd be shocked what we've already found. Dude, I found some of my disciplinary action from kindergarten. Like, there's some funny things in there. And I'm like so thankful to my mother for keeping shit. We used to give her hell, but now it's like, it just brings back memories of, especially the Bengals stuff brings back memories of just heartbreak and defeat. And yeah, the last time they won a playoff game, that was their quarterback. Fun fact for any Cincinnati Bengals fans or football fans.
Boomer or Palmer?
Boomer.
Yeah.
1991, first round wildcard game against the Houston Oilers. And then the next week, they lost to the Los Angeles Raiders. Not only did the Bengals lose, they also ended Bo Jackson's athletic career.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, they didn't end it, but they ended the greatness.
They ended the greatness. So that's something that's lost in the mix of all the Bengals. Like, they cursed Bo Jackson's career in that game that they lost. Anyway, you want to get to some calls? We've had a lot of calls sitting here. And
sure.
Before we get to calls, the hotline is 310-359-8365. I got tons of koozies, guys. Get them out. I want to get them out. So drop a review, leave your Twitter, Instagram handle, or you can email me if you don't have either of those. AndyRuther45@gmail.com. I'll send you the koozies for free. I've already got postage. So drop a review. You got an old one, you can update it. You want some new koozies? It's that easy. Okay. We have a question about Sam Tripoli, which I think this is a good question because a lot of people might not know this. So I think this is good for clarification purposes.
Hey, fellas, it's JT from Jersey, longtime listener. Just listening to Thursday's show, and, more shade is being thrown at Sam Tripoli. And I was just wondering if you guys could explain the whole Sam Tripoli thing. I know I knew more about it at one point, like at the backstory, but I just can't fucking remember. But I love it. Fuck that guy. Condoms are still for Joe Bartnick.
Well, for the record, I love Sam too. This is, you do too. This isn't, there's no
the backstory is very, very simple. I love Sam. You love Sam. We've done a lot of stuff together. We've done crossover Punch Drunks with Dirty Sports. We've both been on Punch Drunk singularly. I've done a ton of Sam's comedy shows. I like hanging out with Sam. Sam's a great guy. I think he lives on Mars now. I don't know. I know his babies like Ninja and Ghost and him are like traveling, the post-apocalyptic wasteland, like the fucking, Mad Max or whatever. But I haven't seen Sam in a while, I think because he doesn't go out because he refuses to wear a mask or something. I don't know. But the backstory is Sam is an old head. And when it comes to NBA stuff, Sam is literally walking around talking about, Michael Jordan's the greatest because LeBron, 275-pound, 6'9" LeBron would never be able to survive the punishment of Vinny the Microwave Johnson and Bill Laimbeer and hand checking. Like the beef, and when we did his show, and I've done his show multiple times, he gets very worked up. He's just an old head. He is the definition of 90s basketball old head, like cheddar dick. Like he fucking, it's not even about Jordan for him. It's all about, it's so soft these days, and everybody was so tough back in the day, and the basketball was better. And so our beef is basically a LeBron Michael Jordan beef, but it's deeper than that because it's a Sam Tripoli thinks plumbers shooting set shots and clotheslining dudes as they come down the lane was good basketball.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the climax of this happened when you and I went to the All Things Comedy Studio. And they were screaming.
Sam left, right? And then he came back.
I was just about to say, Sam was so angry, he walked out mid-podcast recording. And I think that was the climax of.
Yeah. And to be fair, this happens. Sam's 51 or something like that. Sam's old as shit. And that's fine. But he's just he is the face body. He is the embodiment of 90s basketball was good cheddar dickery that is responsible for so much terrible internet hot takes.
And the thing about Sam, like you said, Sam's a great guy. Sam called me. I talked to him at length a couple months ago. Nothing but nice, asking how I'm doing. He was, it seems like he's found a new side, and he was talking to me, if you ever need anything, and talking about how I'm coping with losing my parents.
He's a great guy.
And that's the thing. It was a great call. But I think our problems have been not only is he an old head, as you've pointed this out at times, Joe, and it's true. He's the guy who doesn't watch the game.
Oh, he runs 14 podcasts.
He sees the Twitter highlights.
He has 14 podcasts. He has 2 daughters. He sleeps in some sort of hyperbaric chamber. He doesn't use the internet because he doesn't want Bill Gates living in his brain. He's been banned from Twitter. He's straight up I don't even think he watches Clippers games. I don't know where he would have the time If you look, he podcasts for more hours a day than he could possibly be awake. So I don't know when he's watching basketball. So then that's what's always frustrating is like there's a guy screaming at you about the NBA, and he's so desperately clinging to the 90s because it's the last time you watched a basketball with any consistency. And you're like, dude, I watch basketball every day. And he's like, oh, they're such fucking pussies. I'm like, you watch one clip of Tony Parker flopping from like 14 years ago. What are you talking about? You don't even know who's on your own squad.
Well, we have a follow-up call. I don't know if you remember.
All that being said, I love Sam. And I
Yeah.
wish I could hang out with Sam more, but he lives on Planet Podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing but love. We just don't agree on the basketball discussion. So we have a follow-up call. I don't know if you remember. A dirtball had called asking for some advice from the one and only Bill Walton concerning his son playing Little League baseball.
Right.
So his
Follow-up call.
from his I think 4-year-old son.
Sure.
So his 4-year-old son has followed up.
What's your name again? Thank you, Walton.
Thank you, Bill Walton.
Thank you, Bill Walton, for helping me to do my baseball.
Oh, it's very sweet.
That was amazing.
Yeah. I wonder if I can get Phil on the line here to
Andy Ruther, Joe Prano, and whatever that young fella's name is. Talk about warming your heart on a Monday morning. You wake up, the birds are chirping, the bugs are singing, the teepee, the sunlight is breaking through the walls of the teepee, waking me up naturally. I don't use an alarm clock. Just the sunlight streaming into the teepee as I sleep here down in beautiful San Diego in Southern California. Oh, it's so great. You know, they talk about the California smog. I don't see it. And if I do, it's making just the best sunsets ever. I wake up and I get a call from Andy Ruther. Just want to pass along to you, Bill. Just want to throw down on your voicemail this thank you from a young child. And honestly, it just warms my heart. The thought out there that he's out there clubbing balls off a tee, running the bases, nothing freer in life than when you're a young kid running the bases. And they try to tell, you know, the one thing I love about young children in t-ball, it's the first time, it's the end of innocence. They just go running in any direction they want. Their parents start going, go this way. Now you have to go that way. Before that, it's just run wherever you want. That when you strike your first t-ball and you run, that's literally where innocence ends. They start telling you where to go in life. The older generation is pointing you where to go. But the idea that he couldn't even experience that until I helped him hit that t-ball hands high, throw down on that baseball. I love it. You know, it warms my heart. It's been a long time since I raised a young child. You know, I had a couple do okay. Luke up there in Sacramento, you know, leading the Kings. The next great young team in the NBA. Watch it happen. I'm calling it here. Sacramento Kings making the playoffs next year. Calling it now. I've seen it with my third eye. But, you know, to have a hand, I've got long arms, Andy. To have a hand in the growth of more youngins out there just warms my gigantic 7-foot heart.
Well, Bill, now that I got you, I've just one last question, a personal question from mine.
Throw down all the questions you want, Andy. It's Monday and you've woken me up from a giant slumber with the news of a young child.
So I live near the biggest outdoor music venue in Cincinnati. It's maybe a mile and a half away on the river. It's called River Bend.
Andy Ruther, if you don't think I've been to River Bend, you don't know anything about me. I attended River Bend in 1985. Jerry was still alive.
That's what how did you know that's where I was going? Because I just saw, Bill, that they have, you know, they're adding shows now. Obviously with COVID, they waited on all this. They're just not. And I saw they've added a date with the Dead and Company at River Bend. And I believe it's actually also on 9/11.
Wow. Wow. Well,
Should
I don't know
should
about,
I attend? Should I attend?
I don't know about Twin Towers, Andy, but if you can get yourself on some stilts, maybe you can join me. There will at least be one tower at Riverbend on 9/11. That will be me, the 7 foot. People say Hall of Famer Bill Walton, former MVP of the NBA Bill Walton, NBA multiple 2-time NBA champion Bill Walton, collegiate superstar Bill Walton. But you know what my favorite title is, Andy? World's tallest deadhead. Come on. What's better than that? And I love it. I go to shows. I go to shows in upstate New York and rural North Dakota and on the Great Plains of Texas and the Rocky Mountains of Colorado or River Bend in Ohio. And people see me standing there and they say, look at that guy. And most deadheads don't know basketball. They don't know what a basketball looks like compared to a soccer ball, but they go, look at that guy. He's just so dang tall. And I say, hey there, tallest deadhead in the world, Bill Walton. Great to meet you. And every once in a while, they're old enough to remember the 80s Celtics team, or maybe their dad was a big 78 Blazers fan, and they say, that's Bill Walton. There goes Bill Walton. NBA great. And I'm just so happy to be here. Look at John Mayer up there doing his best Jerry impression, fingering some licks.
Well, I'm excited. I'm glad we could get Bill on for that because, and hearing him, Joe, I was actually thinking I will go again. It's literally down the street from me. You've driven by. It's right next to the racetrack, the horse racetrack in the casino. I'll wear my Bill Walton tie-dye shirt to that concert.
You should.
My brother, Greg, I don't know if you knew this. He is a diehard Grateful Dead fan. Like he's going to see. Yeah. So he's going to see Dead and Company, I think in Chicago, like right before this. He's in the middle. That's all he was reading. He's reading. It's like a 700-page book on the history of Grateful Dead. He was reading on vacation. He loves Grateful Dead.
It's awesome.
So I'll have a partner in crime. And also I can't wait to run into Bill. I mean, that's pretty, who knew he was coming to Cincinnati?
Oh yeah. I think it all depends on his schedule. I've heard him talk about that before, but he goes to a lot of shows. So
yeah.
Keep your eye out.
He really does.
Keep your eye out for the tallest deadhead.
So Coach K announced he's retiring last week, and we got a call from our boy John Smith, who is a North Carolina native, who covered sports for years. He has some thoughts, and he DM'd me and he asked if we had talked about it. I said, yeah, we already talked about it, but I'd love to hear your input. So he has some thoughts on Coach K's retirement announcement.
Okay.
What's up, boys? It's time for some college basketball talk. Coach K decided he was making the move and retire. Not at the end of the season, but announced his retirement before the start of the season. What a dumb move. I can't stand this move that he's going to sit there and every place he goes, they're going to have a celebration before. It's not about him. It's about the kids that he's recruited. Now, this year's going to be the worst. What do you guys think? Stay dirty, boys.
I 100% agree. The farewell tour is the worst. It's the worst. Here's the only justification, the only argument I can make is that you want to be fair to the kids who you're recruiting now or just recruit or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I understand not having a kid come to Duke to play for the great Coach K, not knowing that Coach K is not going to be there. That being said, there's got to be a way to do this, without that. But I also think this is Coach K. I think the farewell tour is absolutely part of the thing. And I think it's going to be miserable. I hate the farewell tour. I think it's super selfish, but the difference between being an NBA player and announcing this is my last year and being the coach who's responsible for recruiting long-term saying this is going to be my last year. Like, that's the only justification for it. So Who knows? Like, it still sucks, but
Yeah, I'm not a fan of farewell tours either. Look, I get it. You've been there 40 years as Duke's head coach, but it does take away from the kids and the current players, because every single venue you go to is going to be a trophy presentation. To me, the coach is worse than the player. Like when Jeter's doing this or Kobe, it's one guy on a team. Now your coach is part of this ceremony before every game. You talk about a distraction.
yeah. The only justification is that it's, a college coach, and, how do you recruit guys this year and then, do the bait and switch, which we've heard a lot of people complain about over the years. If you knew you were leaving, why didn't you tell me? Why would I come here?
Yeah, but he also could tell the university and not release it.
Right.
I'm sure it's tough to keep stuff under the wraps, especially in this day and age, but there is that possibility. Okay, so we need to check in with Nick Yardley. He's officially our drunk
Amarillo.
Yeah, but he's upstate New York, like our drunk, like originally our drunk upstate New York
315 crew. Just hung out with
correspondent,
our boy Zach down in San Diego, Dr. Dirtball.
FYI, these are gibberish, but I figured
okay,
we can plan. This is a 2:15 in the morning call Saturday, followed by another one.
Square up.
Hey, yo, Dirty Sports. It's Charlie. I got 2 questions. One question for Ruther. I'm going to start this one. I'm going to call you right back.
Okay, so he struggles. This is his callback.
Okay.
Hey, yo, it's Yardley. Hey, Dirty Sports. I got 2 things on my mind right now. Pussy and food. I'm wasted. One question for Joe. Joe, I know you get laid. You ain't got to worry about this. But, Joe, fuck. Dude, I got to call back again. Ruther, I know you're going to mention this, so I'm sorry. I'll drink more, I think.
What?
And those are the 2 calls?
Yeah.
That was our update from
Amarillo.
New drunken correspondent Nick Yardley. Square up, bro.
He said, I got 2 things on my mind: pussy and food.
It's unbelievable.
You can do both at once. It's amazing.
The Costanza.
In fact, I would argue.
What about the pecans?
In fact, I would make a strong argument. There is nothing better than getting laid, especially if in that state of mind when you're inebriated, and then getting some shitty food with that said girl. You're like, yo, we just banged it out. Now let's go crush some Mickey D's, or as Nick D'Alessandro calls it, Don's.
Don's. I'll never get over that. That is too funny.
That's an all-time moment.
What do you mean you don't know Don's? Oh, you mean Mickey D's, but literally 1,000% of the population calls it? No, we'll go to the Don's. Is it a fucking pizza place?
That was on the trip to Amarillo.
Yeah.
When we first learned
we
about
should get some Don's. That was the Don's that killed our steak challenge.
Oh, my God. Talk about a reckless decision.
Reckless. Why didn't you just eat earlier that day?
I think you could have done it. I think you could have done the steak challenge.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
How many? What did we eat at that McDonald's? I know I had at least 2.
Yeah, I think I had like 2 cheeseburger. I think I had like a 2 cheeseburger meal. Reckless. At like 4 p.m.
I tried that new McDonald's chicken sandwich, by the way.
Which they have a new one?
Yeah, that they're advertising on TV for.
I know Burger King's got a new one.
I haven't tried that one.
People hyping the Burger King's chicken sandwich.
The McDonald's one, I tried twice because I was like, I tried twice in the last. It's like 2 months old. I go, I'm gonna try it again, bro. It's lame.
Okay.
And by the way, we got a new one. We got a new one. You think the shake machine's broken? I got a new one. I went. This wasn't recent. This was, I don't know, maybe it was 2 months ago. There's a 24-hour McDonald's by me, and when you live in the suburbs, there's not much 24-hour stuff. So like that one gets packed, as you can imagine. Basic supply and demand. It's one of those that has 2 lanes for it.
Yeah.
Everyone's waiting. It's a Saturday night. I've been hanging out with buddies, right? So I'm going a little later at night, probably like 1 a.m. Pull up. Woman says to me, after I've already been waiting for a good 10 minutes just to make my order, she says, do you have cash? The credit card machine's broken. And I'm like, what? I'm thinking, dude, this is an all-timer. I've already waited 10 minutes. You're saying
you better take Venmo.
Yeah, your machine. And luckily I did have cash. A lot of times I don't. I was like, and that's what I was thinking in my head, and I'm looking in the line. The line's like all high school and college kids. I'm thinking, I'm the oldest person probably in this fucking line right now. None of these kids they don't even know what cash is nowadays.
Yeah.
That's 100% a ploy.
Lana doesn't know his zip code. I mean, Jesus.
Do you have cash? Our machine's broken. Yeah. I'm sure. I'm thinking of the person who owns that franchise when I bet they crush business late night like that, especially when they're the only one around. I almost turned full boomer. I almost was like, I want to get in touch of who owns this and let them know that somebody's really trying to fuck with their business. The machine's down. It's like saying, oh, we don't have any Big Macs here. All right, we got time for one more call?
Yeah, we got time for one more. What time is it? Yeah, we got plenty of time.
This would be more for you, I think, a little baseball question, because I've seen some things, but I don't fully know exactly what he's talking about.
Hey, boys, this is your Indiana DirtBall Preston, and I've been down a YouTube rabbit hole recently watching a lot of John Boys videos. And I don't know if you've been keeping up with the whole Trevor Bauer and the foreign substance issue that's going on in baseball. But I was curious if you thought that the baseball is doing to Trevor Bauer like what it did to Barry Bonds. It's making it a scapegoat, making him a scapegoat. And I'm just curious if you agree with that take. And also, just you need to watch John Boyd's videos. They're awesome. Great comedy, great baseball commentary. Anyway, condoms are for the Patriots, and stay dirty.
So what is the update on the, I've obviously seen it in the news of the Trevor Bauer stuff.
Well, so here's the situation. So it's basically steroids all over again. But we now have a situation in baseball with the shift, with the launch angle, with the power pitching, where we now have a situation where batting averages are way down, balls in play are way down. Great pitching performances are way up. The same way when we had steroids, we had tons of home runs, the averages were up, juiced ball, blah, 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 blah. It has now gotten to the point where baseball is like, we've gone too far, not enough guys are hitting. So now the same way as when guys were, Brady Anderson was hitting 50 home runs, where the baseball is like, it's gone too far. Now what we need to do is we need to act like we have a problem suddenly that we've actually had for 25 years. So the same way as in baseball in the fucking mid 2000s, they started caring about steroids, which again, my statement with steroids has always been the same. My brother John told me, because I loved Jose Canseco in the late 80s, that Jose Canseco was on steroids. My brother John has never watched a single complete baseball game from start to finish ever in his life. Not a sports fan. And
I can validate that because we went to the Giants Mets game, and he must have he must have asked
a seal on the mascot thing.
He must have asked a million times if he could, because we were right in front of the visitor dugout, if he could stand on top of the dugout. I'm like, dude, what?
I'm not surprised. I'm surprised he didn't ask how many outs there were in an inning. Not a sports fan, John. Owns a Yankee hat, I think, but not a sports fan. So my point was, somebody who doesn't know about anything, knows just from word of mouth, knows just from people talking about it, knows just because he wants to ruin his younger brother's fandom. Oh, that guy's on steroids. I was like, I don't even know what steroids are. So the foreign substance on pitchers' gloves, on pitchers' hats, on pitchers' things. This is older than I am. Consistently. It never stopped. It never stopped. I mean, you can go back to a guy getting suspended in the Dodgers series in the 80s. You can go back to the fucking 70s. It has never stopped. Not for 1 second. And so every day now, the John Boys of the world, who, by the way, does a fantastic job on social media, and everybody else, the Twitter detectives, they show guys rubbing their gloves, and oh, look at me, he goes back to his glove after every pitch, and does that. Yeah, they're doing it. They have substances on their gloves. A lot of these guys do. And it's not a problem for baseball in the past because it was a way that pitchers were counteracting the juiced ball, the steroids, the whatever. Now we've gotten rid of the juiced ball. We've gotten rid of the steroids. Batting averages are down. And suddenly baseball's being like, we have this problem with foreign substances and spin rates and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, you've always had this problem. You just liked how it counterbalanced. So now that now that pitchers are dominating, you're going to pretend like this is an issue. So yeah, absolutely. Is Trevor Bauer? Yeah. Listen, it's one of those things where baseball is going to deny it until they can't deny it anymore. And now you have everybody doing the Twitter detective thing. Trevor Bauer gets a lot of attention because he's so fucking outspoken. So yeah, he's going to be, but like when this happens, it's going to be a thing where we see how many guys. Now, the great thing for me is I have forget once in a generation. I have a once in a fucking ever ace on the Mets who's dominating to levels that haven't been seen since fucking Bob Gibson through 10 starts or whatever. And the New York Mets yesterday had a 14-player tweet thread being like, hey, just so you know, Jacob deGrom does this 100% clean. And boy, does that make my fucking heart sing. Guys saying they'll put their contract, they'll bet their salary that you can't find a substance on his glove, which my point is this. The great guys don't need it. But just like Barry Bonds didn't need it, when the other guys are doing it, how do you not? Barry Bonds only took steroids because fucking Sammy Sosa hit 60 home runs. And he was like, well, I'll hit 100. And then he fucking could have if they didn't walk him 200 times in a season. So there are guys out there who probably, have been doing this their whole careers. And I don't know if Bauer did. Bauer certainly had a nice little, you look at Bauer, nice little 2-year, 3-year run here. He fell off pretty hard there in the middle. He had a career 4 ERA or something like that. So is he a scapegoat? Yeah, probably. Tons of guys are doing this. Tons. And have been doing it forever.
Yeah, I know they've done it forever. That's been a thing if you've ever followed baseball. It's definitely getting more attention now with these videos and with social media.
My buddy who played minor league ball sent me the Josh Donaldson calls out Garrett Cole amid MLB cheating saga. And he said, I've been talking about this shit for years. And I was like, seems like the time has finally come. And he goes, it's just shocking. It's been so widely known for at least 20 plus years. And that's what I said, baseball, MLB gives 0 fucks until they can't not give a fuck.
Yeah, it's kind of been their MO. It really has on all this stuff. Well, drop us a line. 310-359-8365 is our hotline. Give us a follow on social at The Dirty Sports. And again, drop a review to get some koozies sent courtesy from yours truly in the mail.
At Joe Prano on all things social media, except for Twitter, at Fix Your Life. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me everywhere else. Keep drinking Miller Lite. And yeah, that's all I got. Shows in and around LA for the rest of June. So I'll be here. If you guys want to come to a show, check out joeprano.com. Put my shows up there.
If you guys want to help me organize my current residents, you can DM me as well because need all the help I can get.
DM Andy. I want some Ohio dirt balls over there helping Andy organize.
There's a lot of dirt balls out here. There's a lot. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for the support. Have a great week. And as always, stay dirty.